Okay, Photowalk Indianapolis with Scott Crone, who is an Indianapolis photographer, and he works at one of the great camera stores, Robert's Camera Store, right there in Indianapolis. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good, doing good, Jeff.
Tell everybody about the joy of photographing Indianapolis, why they might want to go to a photo walk in Indianapolis.
So, Indianapolis is one of those cities that I think it's really walkable. That's one of the things, many things it has going for it. But what's nice about photographing Indy is that everything is really accessible, especially downtown. There's a variety of different transportation methods. If you're not a walker, like they have the bike share program, now you have the scooters that seem to be everywhere. But and the heart of downtown Indianapolis is all within, a mile or so. So you can really honestly walk from one side of downtown to the other in probably 15 or 20 minutes. And all the top photo spots and attractions are, most of them are downtown. It's very easy, well lit, convenient. We've got the cultural trail, which kind of connects everything now. And I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's just really easy to get to. Everybody's friendly, kind of everybody's heard of like Hoosier hospitality. And that's kind of what Indiana and Indianapolis is known for. So if you get lost for some reason, you ask somebody where to go or ask for directions, you'll probably get more than enough people willing to help you out. So,
Well, just looking at the map, I figure you start at the circle and the monuments, and you've got the State House and
hmm
the Canal Walk. You got a lot of stuff right down there. You've got great
you
shots
do.
on Instagram of the skyline. Let's start there
hmm
because that's one of the always the definitive shot of a city is getting a
It
great
is.
skyline shot. So where do you like to go for that?
My favorite, I got a couple of different locations for skyline shots, and you mentioned it. The Circle is kind of the unofficial city of the center of the city. That's iconic. The Soldiers and Sailors Monument is always kind of that photo that's synonymous with Indianapolis. Um, but my favorite spot to go to, I've got two of them. It's probably a tie. One of them is a park called it's Highland Park, Highland Park, which is a small, 1 or 2 acre park just east of the city, but it's on a hill that looks facing west. So it's got a great view of the skyline, unobstructed view of the skyline, and it's a great spot to go watch the sunset, photograph, those kind of Midwest sunsets. Probably one of the best sunset spots where you can capture the Indianapolis skyline at sunset and get that golden hour color that so many people look after. And then my other favorite one, Jeff, is probably going to be White River State Park, which is actually on the east side of down, or actually on the west side of downtown, facing east. From that spot, you're across the river, looking at the city, and you've got the White River there, so you get some really cool reflection shots. And that's also a good place to go for sunrise if you're an early riser, and you can kind of get the same thing, but a different vantage point. But with that location, since you're on the water, you can get some really cool shots with the city, reflecting in the water if you're creative. So,
Tell everybody about the monuments in the circle. Is it one big monument or
so
are there several?
there are several. Indianapolis, and I don't know the exact number, but Indianapolis, not many people know about this. Outside of Washington, D.C., it actually has the most monuments in one city, I think, of most other. You'll have to fact check me on that. But if it's not the number one outside of, Washington, it's really high up there on that list. But I believe somebody told me that it has the most monuments. One of my favorites, other than the Soldiers and Sailors Monument on the Circle, is the Indiana War Memorial. That's that kind of iconic pointed, a square-shaped structure that's on the American Legion Mall north of the Circle. That's a cool building, both inside and outside of it, and not many people know you can actually go inside of that and take a tour of that museum and get some really cool shots of the inside of the War Memorial. I would highly suggest people do that. I think the admission is free during the day. Just double check the hours, but that's a great memorial to photograph inside and outside of the city,
Now,
outside during the day.
I understand the Children's Museum is one of the top museums as well. Is that a good photo spot?
It is. They have the Children's Museum is unique because they have a lot of cool stuff not only on the inside of the building but on the outside too. So you have like dinosaurs, and I think at certain times of year they have festive decorations, but you have these giant 15, 20, 30 feet high dinosaurs on the outside of it, and you can get some really cool shots of the building. It's unique there. So the Children's Museum is about 5-10 minutes north of downtown Indy, so maybe a bike or hopping on a bus or an Uber or a Lyft or something. But you can get some cool shots of the Children's Museum and the decorations on the outside of it as well.
How about the State House? For the definitive shot of the State House, it's big, so everybody can get a good shot, but not everybody can get a great shot. So where do you want to stand to go get that?
So there is a great view of the State House if you're actually on the circle of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument on the circle looking west. You can get a great view of the State House looking down Market Street, which is a brick lined street. You can get a really cool shot between the buildings. So it's a very naturally, nicely framed of that one. Another good vantage point of the State House is going to be from the canal. You can see it from the canal a couple times right above Ohio Street. And if you haven't been to Indianapolis, the Canal Walk is one of the coolest spots of the city, not just because of all the stuff there is to do on it, but also the really cool, iconic views of the skyline that you get. The canal is certainly one of those synonymous shots of Indianapolis that people have probably seen, but just don't know that they've seen. So when they go there to take pictures, they look, oh, this looks familiar.
Well, tell people about the Canal Walk. What's it all about?
So it's about a 1.5 mile, give or take, total walk, from front to end. The canal actually is, I believe, it's part of the cooling system of a nearby building. But what the Canal Walk is cool for is because it's great for people to go take a stroll down. There's lots of little shops and cafes along it. There are a couple of museums like the Indiana State Museum, the Idle Jordan Museum for Native American history is located there. But it's a great way to kind of stretch your legs and walk around the city without having to deal with traffic. But it offers a lot of unique photo spots. But also the canal is very festive because at certain times of year they'll dye the water in the canal certain colors like green, for example, for St. Patrick's Day. They've dyed it, pink before for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They've dyed it blue for other events, for like Colts games, things like that. So they kind of when there's something big going on or there's something some significant event, they'll usually dye the water of the canal different colors, and that kind of creates a unique photo opportunity because there are only a certain select times of year where you're going to get that color in there.
And I'm guessing summertime is when they do more of that.
They do more of that, yeah. So the canal is going to it's full of water year round, but obviously in the winter, it freezes over most of the time. Actually, 4 or 5 years ago, we got a really big snowstorm, and it got really cold right before we got a big snowstorm, and the canal froze over. And you had I don't know the rules around this, but you had a lot of people going out onto the canal, like building snowman, things like that. And I was actually there to document that day. I did not risk going out on the water because I did not want to fall through the ice. It's only like 3 or 4 feet deep. So you're not going to fall very far, but I did not want to risk it. But yeah, they do most of those events in the warmer months of the year. One more tip that I want to give people too, it's a little known tip that not even Indianapolis residents know. There is an observatory at the top of our city county building, which is one of the 3 or 4 tallest buildings in the city. That's actually free to go up to during the day. Now, yeah, double check the hours before you do that, but I think they're open until about 4 or 5 o'clock p.m. But you can take an elevator to go through. You have to go through security because it's a government building. But there's an observatory at the top of the building. You can get some really cool, iconic shots of the city from the observatory.
All right. Now, Indianapolis and sports are synonymous, and there's one sport more synonymous with Indianapolis than any other, which, of course, is race cars driving. That is not part of your downtown photo walk, but you can jump in the car and drive to the racetrack, I assume?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you do for your iconic racetrack shots?
So they offer tours of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I think year round. And a part of that tour that you can actually sign up for is you can get on a little shuttle bus, and it's small, probably groups of maybe 10, 12, 14 people, maybe less than that now. But you can actually, they'll take you on a lap around the track as part of that tour, and you can get out and pose for pictures at the Yard of Bricks in front of the pagoda, those iconic symbols of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's only about a 10, 12-minute drive from downtown, so it's not very far at all. But you can actually, if you're in the right place up in the stands, you can get some pretty cool shots of the Indianapolis skyline, especially if you're lucky enough to attend an Indy 500 or a Brickyard or any of the other events that they have there year round. Bring your camera, definitely, not only to capture the action, but you can get some pretty cool shots of the skyline as well.
And then once there is a race, um, what are your tips for getting a great race shot? Okay.
So bring a long lens. You're going to definitely want your telephoto lens, and ideally a camera. You're going to want it to go into continuous shooting mode. You're going to want to obviously turn on fast tracking on your autofocus, so servo or continuous autofocus, depending on your camera brand. But you're definitely going to want most importantly, a lens that has some reach to it, a telephoto. Ideally, something that's going to get out to 300 millimeters or longer. The trade-off of that is, you'll see these professional race photographers, and we have a couple of them that work here in store. But we have a couple of race photographers that work here in store, and they're carrying around giant, 4, 5, 600 millimeters lenses. And some fans, actually, some dedicated fans will do the same as well. But get a spot that's high up in the grandstands that you can see the whole action, and just bring a long lens and be prepared to do a lot of this. You're going to exercise your torso from walking back and forth that day, but
In a high shutter speed, right?
and a
To
high
stop.
shutter speed, a high shutter speed. Yeah, they're going at those Indy cars are going at about 200, 225 miles an hour. So it's pretty difficult. But if you don't want to go on actual race day, the good news is throughout the month of May, they have practices, which many of which are open to the public. So you have an opportunity to kind of try out or practice your skills, so to speak, on leading up to race day, so you can kind of fine tune your action photography skills before the big event.
And is a thousandth of a second enough to stop the action?
Depending on the light, if it's a sunny day or if it's a bright day, you're gonna usually want to end up at a minimum of a thousandth of a second. I know before I've shot as many of 1/2500th of a second before, but you're gonna be in that ballpark depending on cloud coverage, things like that. So my advice to people is just kind of do trial and error, practice on cars moving by. So, at the start of the race or the finish of the race, you can get a good feel for what your shutter speed needs to be. But yeah, ideally, 1/1000th of a second at a minimum, if not faster than that. Keep your ISO low. Aperture or close down your aperture to maybe 5.6, 6.3 to reach that kind of maximum sharpness of your lens if your lens allows for that. But it's definitely some trial and error, and I even myself am not all that great at it yet. But I've gotten a couple of good shots of the speedway. That memorial or that iconic shot is looking down the front stretch with the green flag, and you've got all 30 cars out on the field. Our education director, Walt Kuhn, actually is one of the main photographers for the Indianapolis Speedway, so he's available to give advice here too, and we typically refer people to him. Although he's not here at the store much during the month of May because he's out taking race car photos, but he offers some good advice as well.
Tell everybody about your Instagram. You're at JS Crone, right?
JS
JS,
Crone, yeah.
right.
So I don't have any good, background stories for my name. That actually, when I first got into photography, that used to be my college email address, and I need to change it, and I've been meaning to, but right now it's just Jay is my first name. My legal name is John, but my middle name is Scott, so that's kind of where that came from. But yeah, I'm just an Indianapolis-based photographer. I do a lot of commercial and event photography around the city here, and it all started as kind of I used to live downtown, And it all really started off with me walking around taking pictures with my iPhone. I don't, have a lifelong background in photography, but I just kind of started strolling around, taking walks during at various times of the day with my iPhone. I thought, I could find some cool vantage points and, start experimenting with editing photos, and that, has kind of evolved into, digital photography. And then I bought my first camera from Roberts, and they helped me pick out a good one that matched what I need. And then, fast forward 4 or 5 years, and not only, do I only have my own photography business, but now I'm an employee at Roberts Camera as well. So my photo story, is unique in that I don't have the most creative artistic background, but my family even kind of teases me because I was the guy who didn't get very good grades in art class growing up in school. Everything else was fine, but I never really kind of had a creative outlet, and then I kind of picked up a camera, and that was I really like this. So. Working at Roberts has been great, not only for my personal career, but professional as well. You just meet so many interesting people of varying skill levels, from beginners to professionals, who have advice, who have unique needs or situations that you get to hear about. And I'm telling people, I'm learning something new every single day here, whether it's, from new gear that I have not tried before, or from a customer who comes in with a unique situation that we kind of have to problem solve. So it's really been a great opportunity here at Roberts, both from, my Instagram to kind of, starting and cultivating my photography business as well.
What are some of the images that we would see on your Instagram?
You're going to find various photos of different vantage points of downtown Indianapolis and the surrounding area. And I will warn people too. And anytime, people want to know where photos, I try to add it to my caption, or add it to the geo tag, wherever my photos are taken from. But if people ever want to know, where did you get this photo, or how did you take it, or what settings you use, I'm always happy to lend that information. And I encourage people to ask. But you'll find various photos of the city. I like capturing the city in different seasons. So this time of year, I'm really on the lookout for a good snowfall. Because I think you can photograph the same spot 100 times, but when it's covered with a fresh blanket of snow, it suddenly looks completely different, brand new. There's just something about a fresh powder of coating of beautiful white snow that makes a familiar scene new again. But you're going to find a lot of drone photography too. So I'm a certified drone pilot as well. So there are some photos I'll usually tell whether it's a drone photo or whether it's an indie photo. But that's also been a big advantage of, getting unique vantage points as well. Though still you're able to get much better results with a camera on the ground usually than with a drone. But you're going to see different skyline shots. You're going to see different events from around the city. Like we've got the Final Four coming up this year, so I'll probably be involved with that. Different events from Pacers and Colts games, landscape architecture, photography, and just any kind of thing where I can put Indianapolis or capture Indianapolis in the best way that I can, and really kind of promote the city that I was born and raised in. So all kinds of stuff.
And besides Indianapolis being very walkable, what is it about what's there that makes you want to photograph Indianapolis? What makes it stand out, do you think?
It's just, I think, I don't know. I just have a really unique love for this city. It's just, I don't know, the people are so friendly. The skyline, while it's not, one of the biggest skylines in the world, it's certainly not small too. Everything is very symmetrical. We talked about all the monuments that it has, the different ways to capture that skyline, but the city in general is very accessible. So if you want, or if there's a way that there's a perspective that you have in your head, you can usually find a way to capture it. And actually, I've done this before. If there's a building that you need to get into, or a deck or something, I've sought people out, and I've put my business card in people's mailboxes, and I've contacted property managers to kind of work with them on getting access to a location if it's not something that I can, get to myself from the ground. And that's worked out a number of times. I tell people all the time, if there's a shot that you have planned, definitely, map it out in your head. And if you need to get access to certain location, work with people. And more often than not, you're going to find people that are willing to help. So
Yeah, 'cause
Indianapolis is great.
The worst thing that could happen is they would say no.
Absolutely, yeah. You have nothing to lose, and I find too. I kind of, if you have something to trade, like, hey, can I borrow your patio or something for 5 or 10 minutes, and in exchange, I'll give you a print of my image or something like that. So people, and I've done that before. There was a condo building on the southeast side of downtown looking toward the city that I've always wanted to get access to. And I put my business card and a couple people, and I also put a couple of messages out on my Instagram page, say, hey, does anybody know anybody that lives in this building? I'm looking to get some photos. And somebody actually saw it and referred me to a friend that lived in that building. And they let me up there. I took a couple of pictures, got the shot that I wanted, and I sent them a digital print. And now I believe it's hanging in their living room. So you just kind of get creative about how you can go about getting different shots in certain situations. It hasn't always worked out, and I've been turned down before. But like you said, the worst thing they can say is no, and I'm okay with that.
I usually offer free headshots because it doesn't
There you
cost
go.
anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you have something to trade, more often than not, people will be receptive to that.
Alrighty. So, Photowalk Indianapolis with Scott Crone. Look for him on Instagram at JS Crone, Crone. Do you have a website as well, Scott?
I do. It's scottcronephoto.com. And you can reach out to me there. You can reach out to me on Instagram, send me a message.
And for the goodbye section, tell everybody the address of Roberts and where it is.
220 East St. Clair Street, Roberts Camera. That's our main headquarters, our base of operations. We've been in this building for about 6.5 years now. We also have a store on the north side of the city in Carmel, which is a suburb of Indianapolis, if you're out in that direction as well. But definitely come see us. It's walkable from all the major hotels downtown. We've got JUS Photo Pro down here. We've got a full-service photo lab. We've got classes in person and online that you can take here if you're local, or throughout the different parts of the country they offer on Zoom. But yeah, come say hi to me. I'm a sales associate here, or any of the other guys, and we'll be happy to work with you.
Alrighty, Photowalk Indianapolis with Scott. Thanks so much for telling us all about it. As always, I'm at Jefferson Graham on Twitter, and thanks for watching and listening.
Thank you, Jefferson.